We're kicking off with Raw, as this week's show is the final episode on the USA Network, as next week the Red Brand will make its long-awaited debut on Netflix and return to 3 hours. During the opening segment, Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett's introduction of Jey Uso was interrupted by the New Day, who wanted to address the fans in Houston. The heat was once again nuclear for the New Day, and at one point, Xavier Woods nearly got through a sentence without the jeers and simply looked to the crowd. That look reminded them to reignite their boos, and it was a great example of how a veteran performer can effortlessly manipulate a crowd. Boos drowned out the pair, and Jey Uso arrived to say that the New Day sucks before calling out Drew McIntyre, but instead, he got Solo Sikoa on the Titantron. Solo vowed to defeat Roman Reigns next week and retain the Ula Fala in Tribal Combat on Raw on Netflix, and criticized Jey for siding with the OTC. As Jey was distracted, McIntyre blindsided him and began a beatdown, but Jey countered a Claymore kick with a super kick, only to be met with a Glasgow kiss by the Scotsman. Officials intervened before Drew could hit the Claymore, but he was able to break free and hit the move anyway, and later in the night Adam Pearce made a match between the two officials. That match will take place during next week's Raw on Netflix debut, the latest match for the show that could have fit on the WrestleMania card. McIntyre's heel turn was necessitated by the arrival of Jey Uso to Raw, but that feud was put on the back burner when McIntyre kicked off his feud with CM Punk. That feud began due to Punk's torn triceps injury from this year's Men's Royal Rumble, and it's great that Triple H and his team haven't forgotten their original plan and are going back to it. Time will tell what goes down next week, but a stacked show is planned, and expect full coverage of what will arguably be the biggest episode of Raw of all time. What's your take on Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre? Who do you think will win that match? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Mere days before their match over a year in the making, CM Punk and Seth Rollins came face to face, with Rollins coming out first, serenaded to the ring by the crowd. Rollins said that Punk is the self-proclaimed best in the world, but he is the real best, and after Seth made a crack about Punk taking his ball and going home, the AEW alum came out. That comment about taking the ball was used in 2002 when Stone Cold walked out of the company, and Punk called Rollins' dig a bootlicker line. The Chicago-made star asked if Becky Lynch, Seth's wife, has taken her ball and gone home, and didn't take kindly to the insinuation he'd abandoned the fans. CM Punk has zero regrets, but wanted to focus on the last 10 months rather than the last 10 years, while Rollins said Lynch is at home raising their child, something Punk knows nothing about. After this nod to Punk and AJ not having children, Rollins referenced Punk's infamous appearance on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast and Punk's AEW run, though didn't name either AEW or Cabana by name. Firing back, Punk said he loved WWE but hated the guy in charge, a nod to Vince McMahon that popped the crowd, and told Rollins that he loved you. Punk left WWE because he had to, and it took years to remove all the damage, and pointed out how fans chanted his name for years, saying it mostly came during Seth Rollins' segments. Rollins called Punk a cancer to the locker room, to the business, and even his brain, in an epic way to cap off the build to one of WWE's biggest non-title matches in years. This rivalry has arguably been building long before Punk's return, and this may be the first of many matches for the two, as both men are ready to throw down on January 6th. It's not just fans who are excited, as Bronson Reed tweeted that both are gods on the mic, but made clear that he could flatten both men at once if he chose to. After the show, Punk shared an image of Matthew McConaughey from True Detective, and the expression made clear that Punk was left reeling after his war of words on Raw. This match has a WrestleMania-level feel, which makes sense as WWE had considered the match for the show, and however things pan out on Netflix, this will be one for the history books. What's your take on CM Punk and Seth Rollins' upcoming match? Who do you think will win? Let us know what you think in the comments section. The excitement didn't stop after Raw, as in a dark match, LA Knight teamed with Jey Uso and Rey Mysterio to battle the New Day and Santos Escobar. The Faces got the win to send the crowd home happy, as those in Houston got to see plenty of star power, both during and after this week's Raw. Now Liv Morgan is set to face Rhea Ripley during next week's Raw, in what'll be the defining match of this feud, but are the Women's World Champions' days numbered with the gold? A promo played on Raw hyping up the title match, and later on, fans saw a segment from the Judgement Day's clubhouse where they talked about Morgan and her title defense. Finn Balor then hijacked the segment, sarcastically stating that Lady Liv knows how to deal with Ripley because she apparently knows everything. Balor added that this is like how he has a plan for the War Raiders and Damian Priest, and as he was headed out for the match, asked Raquel Rodriguez to wish Liv luck in her match. This was seen by some as Balor teasing costing Morgan the title just as he did to Damian Priest at SummerSlam, and it's no secret that Finn and Morgan haven't been on the best terms. Balor has a history of turning on allies, as after costing Priest the World Heavyweight title in August, he did so again at Survivor Series War Games. Balor added that when you listen to Finn, you win, and things could get very interesting if Balor chooses to get involved in next week's Women's World Title match. In six-man action, the Judgment Day's Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and Dominic Mysterio faced the War Raiders and Damian Priest, and the heels debuted brand new entrance music. A strong start by the faces led into the heels seizing control in a commercial break, and they controlled the action until a hot tag to Priest sparked a comeback. Balor avoided his sworn enemy and left his allies to deal with the Archer of Infamy, and in the end, Mysterio's 619 attempt saw him run right into South of Heaven for the win. Post-match, Balor clipped the leg of Priest, and a heel beatdown began until Eric and Ivar made the save, ending a fun match, the likes of which WWE tends to excel at. The formula of the match is tried and tested and typically results in quality action, and that was once again the case here with the faces winning and the heels getting revenge on Priest. This feud shows no sign of ending and will continue on. And what did you make of this match? Let us know down in the comments section. In the WWE Women's Intercontinental title tournament, our finals have been set as on Raw, Dakota Kai defeated Zoe Stark in their semifinal showdown. Kai has yet to hold singles gold in WWE, and with her win, she advanced to the finals to face Lyra Valkyria, who defeated Io Sky during Raw. Their match was easily the best of the night, with counters and reversals galore, and late in the match, Valkyria rolled to escape Sky's over the moonsault. The Valkyrie scored the pinfall, robbing Damage Control of an exclusive tournament final, and this was excellent wrestling from two of the best in the women's division. The question now is whether Kai finally wins singles gold, or if Valkyria will right the wrongs of earlier this year with a title win. And let us know below who you see as the first Women's Intercontinental Champion. In recent weeks, WWE has been sharing video vignettes teasing someone's impending debut, and from the start, fans have speculated on the arrival of Penta. During this week's Raw, another teaser aired during the second hour of the show, which made very clear that the arrival of the former AEW star is coming. It had been rumored that Penta and Rey Fenix would be joining WWE together, but that doesn't seem to be the case now, as AEW has added injury time to Fenix's contract, but aren't using him. As for Penta, he departed AEW this year, and expectations are high for the masked star, who many feel may make his debut in WWE during Raw on Netflix. Are you excited to see Penta on Raw? How would you book him on the show? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Now, R-Truth has been a thorn in the side of Pete Dunne for weeks now, and has often mistakenly referred to Dunne by his former name Butch, a moniker the Bruiserweight cannot stand. On this week's Raw, Dunne was granted his match with Truth, and the fun-loving superstar's entrance and signature What's Up chants were cut short by an ambush by Dunne. Dunne's beatdown saw him land a flurry of kicks and punches on the veteran along the entrance ramp, and as officials tried to separate the two, Dunne was yelling, "I'm nobody's Butch!" That shouting continued as he walked away, satisfied with the attack he'd given Truth, and while it seemed this feud would end this week, that no longer appears to be the case. Instead, it looks like this attack extended this rivalry, as fans can expect Truth to seek payback on the Bruiserweight in the coming weeks. As we previously reported, former WWE superstars AJ Francis, Baron Corbin, and Tyler Breeze were backstage at AEW World's End in a move that stirred up speculation. On the Fightful Select Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp was asked if this is a sign that any of these three will soon be All Elite, and stated, "I haven't heard of AEW having any particular interest in any of them, but I do know that AJ Francis did impress some people within TNA, especially from where he was a year ago and what they were expecting out of him." As for Breeze, sources have indicated that his visit was merely a social one, as he lives in the Orlando area and was visiting friends who were a part of World's End. Breeze hasn't been a full-time wrestler for years, but remains focused on his ventures outside the squared circle and only returns for select matches on his terms. Their presence backstage may have added a layer of intrigue, but for now, AEW isn't looking to add any of these three men to their roster. The impression Francis has left in TNA, though, could signal better opportunities for him down the road, especially given reports that his contract with TNA will end very soon. Do you think AEW should bring in talents like AJ Francis, Baron Corbin, or Tyler Breeze, or should they continue exploring other avenues? Share your thoughts in the comments below. During the World's End main event, Jon Moxley suffered a significant cut on the back of his head due to a triple powerbomb through a table, a nod to Moxley's WWE run in The Shield. This wound left fans and officials concerned about his condition, but in an update, Brian Alvarez shared that Jon Moxley was said to be okay after the show. This is certainly a relief for fans who watched as Moxley fought through the pain of the cut and ultimately got the win by delivering a Death Rider to Jay White to retain the AEW World title. Even with his cut, Moxley's night was far from over, as after the match, the Death Rider's post-bout assault was interrupted by FTR and the returning Adam Copeland. This has set up an exciting six-man tag for this week's AEW Dynamite on New Year's Day, where FTR and Copeland will face Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and Pac. Moxley walking out of World's End in good health is the best outcome fans could have hoped for after a grueling main event and post-match antics, and now attention turns to 2025. The AEW World Champion isn't slowing down anytime soon despite the scary incident at World's End, and fans can expect Moxley to give his all with Dynamite's six-man tag. What are your thoughts on Jon Moxley's performance at World's End? Do you think he'll dominate in the six-man tag match? Share your opinions in the comments below. Back to Raw, as Ludwig Kaiser may not have held a singles championship this year, but 2024 has been a good year for the German, who's faced some of Raw's marquee names. Kaiser has shown he belongs in the ring with WWE's top stars, and this week, as he was calling out Braun Breaker, Sheamus made a surprise return to take Kaiser out. The Celtic Warrior had not been seen since Survivor Series, and it looked like their feud is to be renewed, but as to where Breaker will fit in all of this, that remains to be seen. Nevertheless, fans were thrilled to see Sheamus back on Raw, and hopefully, renewing his feud with the Irish superstar on Netflix will be a sign of big things to come for Kaiser in 2025. As for Sheamus, fans can once again expect banger after banger after banger from the veteran, who remains on the hunt for the Intercontinental title and the WWE Grand Slam. More from Raw as Chad Gable and Otis collided in a match months in the making, and the latest chapter in the long-running rivalry of the former allies. Gable targeted the legs of Otis, looking to take him off base and thus negate much of his power, and while it worked for most of the match, Otis mounted a late comeback. On commentary, Wade Barrett exclaimed that this is the best that Otis has ever looked, which may have been some hyperbole, but it was nonetheless a strong performance. Gable delivered an exceptional German suplex to Otis, complete with a delay in midair, and reminds fans that though he may not be the biggest, Gable's strength cannot be denied. Maxine Dupree and Akira Tozawa attempted to thwart the interference of Ivy Nile and the Creeds, but Nile influenced the outcome and provided a distraction that allowed Gable to regain control. Trapped in the ankle lock, Otis tapped to his former friend and coach, and this outcome sucked the life out of the fans in Houston who wanted to see Otis get the win. Even in defeat, Alpha Academy is a crowd-pleasing act, and this strong match with an invested crowd did what it needed with a finish that leaves the door open for a rematch. Backstage, Rey Mysterio propped up a dejected Otis following his loss to Chad Gable, only to be interrupted by the men Rey kicked out of the locker room, The New Day. A verbal back and forth led to a tag match being made for next week, and another huge match added to the Raw on Netflix card. On Raw, a video hyped John Cena's return to Raw, which will come next week on Netflix, with the phrase, "The last time is now," as the WWE Icon's farewell tour will kick off very soon. A throwback package highlighted some of Raw's best moments over the decades, and with the final shot being stone cold, it's left some fans wondering if this was a tease of a return. Now, 2024 has seen some huge debuts in WWE, from Ethan Page to Stephanie Vaquer to Julia to Jacob Fatu, and recently it was reported that La Hiedra from AAA could be making the move. The report claimed that NXT was interested in signing La Hiedra when her AAA contract is up, but it's since been clarified that this report is not accurate. Lucha Blog, an account which is a prominent Lucha Libre insider, made clear that this claim came from an engagement bait account that merely made this up to get attention. La Hiedra has been competing on the independent circuit since 2010 and joined AAA in June 2015, where she remains to this day and is one of the company's veteran female stars. Could La Hiedra find her way to WWE one day? It's certainly possible, but right now, WWE are not poised to snatch her up, despite what some would have you believe. Who do you hope will be signed by WWE in 2025? Are you familiar with La Hiedra's work in AAA, and if so, would you like to see her join? Share your thoughts down in the comments section. AEW has produced hours upon hours of programming since its inception in 2019, but not every idea that the company has come up with has made it to air. Speaking to the Social Suplex Podcast Network recently, the Young Bucks shared one such idea, dubbed Elite Roulette or EVP Roulette, that would have seen plenty of unique matches. The idea was that a wheel would be spun each week and whoever it landed on would have to come out and wrestle the Elite then and there with the titles on the line. The plan was for the roulette to be unpredictable and have multiple tag teams backstage in their gear ready for action, and the match would take place on the spot after a pick. The culmination was that a specific team would be picked and defeat the Young Bucks in seconds, shocking everyone, which the brothers thought was a great way to lose the titles. Plans changed when Sanjay Dutt shared that the idea bore some similarities to NXT's spin the wheel make a deal concept, and ultimately, the idea was scrapped for being too like WWE. The Bucks were admittedly disappointed as they thought their idea would have been a great twist and would have been a perfect way to drop the titles in an unexpected manner. It's worth noting that for their similarities, there are key differences to the two ideas, as NXT's concept determines match stipulations, while EVP Roulette would have determined opponents. Do you think the Elite Roulette would have been a great addition to AEW, and how do you feel about it being nixed due to NXT's concept? Share your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Mercedes Moné's impact upon AEW's women's division has been undeniable, as 2024 has seen her go from debuting in the company to ending the year as a champion and one of the top stars. Recently, Moné claimed that she had creative control, and between this claim and reports she is AEW's highest paid female star, fans speculated about how much influence she really has. On the Fightful Select Q&A podcast, new details came out as Sean Ross Sapp was asked if Moné has creative control or whether the situation is more nuanced. He said, "No, not really. I think it's just reasonable influence with her saying, 'Oh, I think this would be cool, but I don't think creative control.'" Sapp added that AEW in the past has allowed certain talent the opportunity to pass on certain ideas, an approach that hasn't always been beneficial for the company. Despite this, it was clarified that Moné is not one of these individuals and that she readily collaborates with AEW's creative team and respects the creative process. Do you think Mercedes Moné should have more creative input, or is it better left to the AEW team? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. And we're ending with Raw on Netflix, and given the magnitude of this debut, the show will have a post-show panel in which Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett will team with none other than Big E. This will be Big E's first major role in WWE since being betrayed by The New Day, and we have to imagine that the former WWE champion will have some words for his ex-allies next week.